Blox Fruits just pulled a diabolical comeback in just 2 weeks, which even many players disliked the developers. It was also the same game that had such a catastrophic downfall, leading it to its all-time low ever since 61,000 players. However, today, on January 1 of 2026, it has now become the most popular game inside the platform. In this video, I will talk about the story of the diabolical comeback of Blox Fruits, and you should watch until the very end because the comeback of this game just made the most impact on the platform that could affect Roblox forever. But before that, hey, I am Hundi, and I am asking you watching this video right now to subscribe. It would help me out a ton since we are so close to our 10,000 subscriber goal. And since you're already here, why not just leave a like on the video as well? But anyways, let's go back into the story of Blox Fruits' comeback. To understand why the return of Blox Fruits was insane, we first have to talk about how this game started ever since 2019. You see, Blox Fruits was one of the very first games to introduce this anime called One Piece onto the platform. At the same time, it was the only one to exist since anime games weren't rising into popularity by then. It was very simple to play. All you had to do was get random fruits, level up with these different NPCs, and explore the different islands inside the game. However, what really pulled many players inside the game was the grind that it took to get stronger in the game, as sometimes it would take you months of grinding just to reach max level. However, the game just doesn't stop at leveling, as when you unlock max level, you have to start grinding for rarer fruits, swords, and different PvP builds. It had so much things to unlock and for different builds to grind for. This was the very reason that many players fell in love with the game. Some players grinded to be one of the best swordsmen, or they would try to get one of the best PvP fruits like Light back in 2019, since the Light fruit was apparently the best fruit for both PvE and PvP before they added much rarer and overpowered fruits in today's updates. The game's launch was revolutionary, as it was the very first game to introduce One Piece games, and it also became a reference for other anime games as well. It also gained a huge amount of popularity that only after a few updates, it would rise up to be one of the top 1 played games on the website. The developers of the game, Gamer Robot Incorporated, expressed their thanks to the support that they got for the game's launch. However, the reason for their popularity was beyond just fan service, as the game also offered quality updates during its prime, which many players loved. However, as the game progressed and after a year of the game's launch, they released the second C, which was essentially the peak of the game. It introduced raids and fruit awakenings, which today is still one of the best grinds that many players have to do in order to unlock better stats and fruit variations. The launch of Second C also brought many YouTubers into the game, some of which upload their own videos on their progression from the first C to the second C and later to the third C. The popularity of the game brought them millions of subscribers, which eventually YouTubers like Enyu or Kittgaming were able to grow their channels from zero to the millions that they have today. The game had such a great run, to the point that every single day you would see the game reaching the top 1 most played on the platform. Keep in mind, at the time, the game was only during in 2020, not like today where most of the time we could see 3 or 4 games with millions of players due to the popularity of Roblox. But of course, after 4 years, the game suddenly reached the point of its own downfall from an all-time peak of 1.8 million players down to 61,000 players, making it the worst player count it had had inside the last 3 years. The downfall of Blox Fruits was slow, taking over 7 months of a constant decline ever since the release of the Dragon Rework update back in December 30, 2024. In the first month of its release, it had 1.8 million players. Then by January, it had 800,000 players, and by February, it only had 400,000 players. By August, the peak of its downfall, it reached an all-time low of 61,000 players. For all its years, Blox Fruits had a consistent update every 3 months, which made players extremely hyped, often bringing millions of players back and forth, which is why it kept growing and growing. Although suddenly, the developers broke this promise and eventually released updates once every 4 months, then 6, and then its longest ever being 8 months. In this time, both the YouTube community and the Discord community was extremely dead. There was no news from the developers that a new update would even come, and eventually this silence turned into hate, making many of its players angry towards the developers, some of them even telling that they didn't even care about their players. You see, the players already reached max level. With the updates taking longer and longer to happen, of course players would quit. What else is there to do? Sure, there was PvP, however, you could only get so far because as soon as you hit the max limit of 30 million bounty or honor, there's nothing else to do. With this dry game, and with a community that basically spent millions of dollars on the game, everyone hated MyGame43 or the lead developer, calling him a fraud, a greedy developer, and eventually a liar. They included the game or categorized it to what some people would call generic gambling Roblox games or slop. Another reason for players hating on this game was because the recent updates were called pay to win. In the early days of Blox Fruits back in 2020, Robux paid fruits or items were relatively cheap, with the most items only costing around 1,000 Robux. However, as the developer added more and more fruits, the game became extremely pay to win. One of the fruits being the dragon fruit costs around 5,000 Robux, which is insane because that is roughly around $100. While this was great for players with money, it was terrible for any free-to-play player as the dragon fruit was basically impossible to obtain, as even with the stock mechanic, it would take months, often between 3 to 6 months. You could also try rolling for it in the gacha dealer, but that would be extremely rare as well. Free-to-play players were not happy since almost every update that came was almost focused on rarer fruits, like for example the kitsune, leopard, or dragon, and since it wasn't easy to get these fruits, most players or these YouTubers often had to pay for their permanent versions. It seemed like you cannot even progress in the brand new updates if you didn't pay Robux to get the brand new fruits. It's not like they gave one of these fruits for free for the players to try them. You had to either wait for months to get them or trade for them, which could also take you months to get enough value. Unless, of course, you paid the $50 or more for each of their permanent versions. At that point, many YouTubers also started to get frustrated as well, as to make content on the game, they had to pay thousands of Robux to do so. This was the very moment that the game began to rot. The most visible sign for any Roblox game to mark their downfall was to question how many of the YouTubers are quitting on a specific Roblox game. We've seen these in the decline of Plants vs. Brainrots with Blox in one of my videos, and of course, the same can be said with the decline of Blox Fruits. The game had lost many of its largest creators, most of them switching to the most popular games by late of 2024, which were Fish and of course Grow a Garden in 2025, two of which were Kittgaming and Enyu, two of the largest creators on the game. You see, Enyu was a very popular YouTuber who built his channel around Blox Fruits. He even admitted that he wouldn't be as popular as he was today if it weren't for the game. However, as the time for each update grew larger and larger, the lack of content made it so that he couldn't think of better content. He was stuck to making the same video over and over again. The same could be said with Kittgaming. With his popular admin videos, there was only so much he could make. Eventually, people started to call him out for farming with the same type of content every single day, so of course, with so much pressure, he had to think of alternatives, which eventually led him to quit making content on the game for months. With such massive YouTubers with over millions of subscribers quitting the game, calling out for its update schedule and its pay-to-win aspects, the entire fanbase of the game filled with so much negativity. This was the breaking point of the game. By late 2024, Blox Fruits was considered a dying game. While other games like Fish or Blade Ball were rising in popularity and taking its top 1 spot, they lost their entire player base. The player count of millions of players every single day fell down to less than 100,000 players. The Discord community has even said that it's like the developers didn't even care. They didn't make an announcement, they had no trailer, not even a sneak peek for the game. It's like the game had no plan to update. Even at some point, the game had no traction in YouTube. No YouTuber above 1 million subscribers posted a single video about the game, and it stayed like that for months because there was genuinely nothing to do. Eventually, nobody even cared about the game. But then, suddenly, as soon as the game was going to be forgotten in 2026, the game reached its shocking revival. The new Control Rework update and the Christmas event brought back over 1 million players back into the game. You see, Blox Fruits teased this brand new Control Rework, a fruit inside the game that was loved by many players. However, it was promised years ago during 2022 that it would get a rework. However, due to the delays and failed promises that the developers had, this was one of the many reasons that many players hated the game. Although on December 21, they had given a trailer for the new fruit. As you can already see, the update hype was a massive success, over 5 million views for those excited about the new update. The game received a massive hype, and of course, the game also got revived in the Discord, with players saying that the game is about to make a massive comeback, and they were absolutely right. The silence of the developers and the lack of leaks or any sort of hype, these were all broken in under a single day. Suddenly, the community got revived, many YouTubers returned from the Dragon update and started making videos about possible things that could come along with the fruit rework. The game didn't only have a new fruit though, as it also had better graphics, topping already what they had, and better fruit awakenings and other more PvP changes. But out of all of the things that brought the game back, some major issues about the game were fixed as well, like the different servers, the lag, and other more. However, the only things that returned weren't just developers. It was also the return of the largest YouTubers on the platform. Remember those two YouTubers that I talked a while ago? Well, Enyu, despite making a goodbye video to Blox Fruits, he made a return and started making videos on the game again. As for Kittgaming, he also returned after making brain rot content. With their channels and many other more coming back into the game, it suddenly got revived and their fan bases came back. Their comment sections were also asking for more Blox Fruit contents after months of nothing. With the return of such massive YouTubers who essentially made their channels off this game, many players were also happy to see the return of the game. Many players spammed the Discord servers with W update, and it also revived other communities such as those who do trading or those who do raid groups. Honestly, looking back at it, the game was never dead or terrible. It was just waiting for an update that would eventually bring back its community. Sure, the game does have issues, such as it being a little pay to win with some permanent fruits, or the game passes that you could find in the shop, but the game has one thing for sure: it has a dedicated community. The result of this diabolical revival was a record-breaking moment in Roblox history, maybe even one of the largest comebacks ever, from 60,000 players to now a 1.4 million player count peak. It's like the game never lost its fans. As before, the peak was around 1.8 million players. It did decline, but let's be honest, for a game being 6 years old, that's already impressive. The update's success also tells a story for multiple other games. As we see the rise of 4 games now, 4 old games, some people ask themselves, could this be the peak era of Roblox? As we see the decline of Roblox slop and pay-to-win focused games that have huge black markets, is this the best era of Roblox? Although the return of Blox Fruits could be short-lived, as of course the community is still only active since the update is fairly new. If the update takes long again, let's say another 6 months, do you think that they could pull off another comeback? And if ever, Blox Fruits showed that they could do it. But again, they did lose around 400,000 players from their last peak. As for now, the community says the game is great, that the update is amazing, much even better than the Dragon update years ago. But since this update took over 6 months to make, and with this being a patch to a promise since 2022 for the Control rework, what's stopping them from breaking their trust again? But of course, who would hate the return of some key games that shaped Roblox how it is today? Blox Fruits, like Fish, like Bee Swarm Simulator, like Murder Mystery 2, like Adopt Me, and these games have made a return, with some of them reaching over 1 million players. The return of old Roblox games definitely is something many Roblox players have loved. However, this has been the story of the diabolical return of Blox Fruits, and this has been Hundy, and until the next video, goodbye.